Fair warning, Internet. This video contains me rambling about religion, God, faith, etc., etc. So it may not be as humorous as the first two vlogs. Also, I'm well aware that by taking a discussion of these topics and attempting to fit it into a YouTube video, or the time span that is acceptable for a YouTube video, that I run the risk of sounding misinformed or ignorant. Should that be the case, I hope you'll give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm more than willing to respond to any criticisms or questions you might have through private messages, comments, or good old-fashioned face-to-face interactions. So, with that said, let's jump right into this, shall we? It's been a number of years since Friedrich Nietzsche wrote in his book The Gay Science that God was dead, and it's been an equal number of years since the devout and the faithful of the world have taken those words as a direct attack on their faiths. Admittedly, it's not much of a stretch to interpret it that way, as Nietzsche was famously an atheist or even anti-theist, depending on which interpretation of him you are inclined to believe. Still, with Stephen Hawking's recent claim that God is no longer necessary to explain the beginning of the universe and presumably its continued operations, it seems pertinent to consider Nietzsche's claim once again. Is God really dead? To make this question less likely to provoke knee-jerk reactions of anger or divisiveness, I'd like to phrase the question somewhat differently. Is God still the most important thing in our lives? The answer to that question, for me, is obvious to anyone who knows me. It's a resounding no. I've never been a believer. I'm a self-professed atheist and have been for as many years as I've had the cranial capacity to have such thoughts. So, I am still curious, however, as to what my Christian viewers, or Muslim viewers, or Jewish viewers, or Hindu viewers, or, you know what, let's just skip this and say, viewers with a faith in a deity of any kind might say. Is God still the center of your lives? Is it the most important thing to you? A friend of mine recently told me that they never really believed the religious doctrines that they'd grown up with. They said they did because church and faith provided them a group of people with whom they could relate to, or at least understand, and thus served as a way for them to meet people. I don't know if this example is atypical, but I can't help but wonder if it's a growing phenomenon. A good vlogger might do research to try and find out if this was a statistical outlier or if it was in fact becoming the norm. Well, I attempted to do research, however, I came up with absolutely nothing of value. So I guess that makes me an average blogger for trying, but just not succeeding. Another story that springs to mind when considering whether God is still the center of our lives, or at least the center of the lives of the faithful amongst us, is one that occurred whilst I was sitting in a philosophy class that I once took. The professor asked, if God were to tell you that in order to prove your faith, you must kill the one person who you care about most, be it your child, friend, family member, significant other, etc., etc., would you do it? It's a simple question, really, and the resounding answer seemed to be, I'd have to think about it. This answer seems wrong, though. Some of these people claim to be devout Christians, or at the very least they had a spiritual side to them. Surely if God were to tell you that this was the only way to prove your faith, the only way to earn His love, that would be the end game. You should be saying, all right, going ahead with it, grabbing the nearest weapon and preparing to do away with your nearest, closest, and dearest loved one. And I won't take any answers like God won't ask me to do that, because He very well might. We only need to look at the tale of Abraham and Isaac to see that. I also won't accept, well, in the end, God didn't make Abraham kill Isaac. Because the fact of the matter is that Abraham was prepared to murder his son for the Lord, and he had no way of knowing beforehand that he'd be bailed out in the end. Maybe this is an extreme way to judge one's commitment to God, or to show how much of a priority He is in one's life, and you're free to tell me that. But I can't help but feel that if the very core tenet of religious life is that God comes before all things, that it's at least a somewhat valid question to ask. So is the great fear of one of my favorite philosophers, Soren Kierkegaard, finally come true? Has religion, for the majority of society at least, become merely skin deep? Have science and other modern luxuries pushed God and religious faith to the margins of our society, to the back end of our list of priorities? Or have they replaced him entirely? I wholeheartedly encourage you to leave your answers to these questions, or any questions raised in this vlog, down in the comment section. Whatever you happen to think about the subject, whatever your thoughts or your answers to the questions are, I'd like to thank you for watching. And also, because this vlog wasn't exactly humorous, I'd like to point you to 2 other videos that you can watch if you have the time or if you're just bored later on in the day. One, if you couldn't get enough of me, you can check. I'm going to put an annotation on this hand for a funny video that me and my friends made a while back called Gobble Gobble Die. A lot of you have seen it, but I thought I'd link to it just for the occasion. You know, inject some humor where this vlog failed to do so. And if you wanted to have a video that addresses religion somewhat humorously, maybe from a nerd's point of view, I got a video. Well, I don't have a video, but there's a link to a video in this hand for a video from a little group called For Tax Reasons. It's hilarious. I really encourage you to check it out. Anyway, have a good day, guys. Peace.